Welcome back to Breaking Spines, the miscellaneous book review show for reviewing miscellaneous books. After the last book I talked about on the show turned out to be not as much of a thriller as I thought it would be, I went out of my way to find the thrilliest thriller to ever thriller. What I wound up with was Hour of the Hunter by J.A. Jance. Published in 1992 by Avon Books, this is the story of two women brought together by tragedy. Diana Ladd was a writer and teacher on a Tohono O'Odham reservation in Arizona. Rita Antone was the elderly Native American lunch lady who worked at the same school. Then one night in 1969, Diana's husband Gary rapes, tortures, and murders Rita's granddaughter before killing himself. Gary's creative writing teacher, Andrew Carlisle, was present at the scene and, with Diana's testimony, was arrested and sentenced to prison as an accomplice to murder. You would think Rita would resent Diana, but instead Rita sees a woman who is just as destroyed by this tragedy as she was, and the two form a strong bond. Rita moves in and helps raise Diana and Gary's young son David. 6 years pass. Andrew Carlisle is released from prison on good behavior and immediately begins planning his revenge on Diana. See, Andrew is the one who really killed that girl. He framed and murdered Gary, and now that he's free, he's got a score to settle. This begins an intense week of cat and mouse, dragging in a local detective, a blind medicine man, and a retired Catholic priest, and accumulating in a mad dash violent confrontation in Diana's own home. That's the plot, but it's probably the least interesting thing this book has going for it. More time is spent talking about the Tohono O'Odham, or as they're more commonly called here, the Papago, a now outdated name that means fat bean eater. Yeah, I could see why they changed it. First, there's a setting. Sometimes all it takes to revitalize a bland story in a well-worn genre is to put it in a unique place, and I can safely say I've never read a thriller that took place in a Native American reservation in the 1970s. This is very much a case of write what you know, as J.A. Jance lived on a reservation as a librarian around that time. So when you see things like white racist store owners, unfair police treatment, and integrated school systems, you believe that J.A. Jance witnessed all that herself. But it goes far, far beyond setting, and this is when the book starts to break down for me. Every single character, major or minor, gets an extensive backstory told in flashback. The more important characters get more extensive and detailed backstories, sure, but even characters as minor as a custodian, whose sole role in the plot is to stumble onto a dead body, gets 2 pages about him being a laid-off miner and having a strained relationship with his family and stuff. I'm all for 3-dimensional characters, but all of this is just distraction. These flashbacks and backstories take up at least 50% of the book, if not more, and none of them, not a single one, has anything to do with the plot. The most interesting backstory belongs to Rita Antone, because it's a nice little history lesson of Native American relations at the turn of the century. We watch little Rita forced into a white school, watch as her friends and family either embrace or reject white culture to various degrees. That we watch her try to keep the traditions of her grandmother, we watch her fall in love with a white man, and we watch her try to find work at various levels of difficulty. These are the best parts of the book, and Rita is one of the best characters I've read in a while. On the flip side, Diana Ladd is one of the worst. She's one of those paperweight women characters where things happen to her, but she doesn't do a damn thing. She has no motivation, maintains a perpetual woe-is-me attitude, and her backstory is nothing but a collection of soap opera cliches. We've got the abusive alcoholic father, we've got the weak-willed mother, we've got the high-pressure child's pageant, we've got the "you're not my real father" discoveries, we've got the struggles of an unpublished writer, we've got an asshole cheating husband. It's incredible how uninteresting it all is to read. The only thing that can be said about all this is that it sets up Diana, a woman who's been walked on her entire life, to suddenly gain a little backbone, a little will to protect herself, protect her son and her best friend from this monster that's come to attack her. But they chicken out of it. When the actual final confrontation happens, Diana goes deer in headlights dumb, and then when Andrew is finally defeated, she opts out of any kind of revenge or justice, or what the hell was the point of any of that? She doesn't have a character arc. She has a character, the battery's dead, then she has a character push down a hill to get it started, then she has a character gets a little bit up the arc, and then a character stall out, a character starts going in reverse, a character crashes into a pole. These character backstories promote the secondary character subplots that, again, don't have anything to do with the main plot of the book. Hey, how about 50 pages about a local detective dealing with his father's dementia? No? Well, how about 100 pages of a blind medicine man and a Catholic priest teaming up to drive out evil spirits? No, really, that happens. And while that sounds like a fantastic book on its own, once again, not much to do with anything here. It doesn't even have a proper conclusion. It's just there for these characters to cross paths with the serial killer plot and get physically threatened by Andrew. But I'm getting off track here. I was talking about how this book is interested in Native American culture. We have the reservation setting, we have flashbacks from Native American characters, and now we have straight up, for lack of a better term, straight up commercial breaks where the book stops and we're told a Native American legend, usually broken up into parts, the parts not always given to us in chronological order. If any of these stories have anything to do with the plot, or even the subplots or the backstory, it's not obvious, at least not to me. It's just something J.A. Jance wanted to include for the hell of it. And it's interesting, don't get me wrong. I was particularly taken by the story of the woman who loved field hockey so much she neglected her kids. When I was reading up on this book, I found a quote from J.A. Jance, admitting these legends don't have anything to do with the book's story, but she likened it to a French braiding, which is an interesting way to structure a book. But is it an accurate representation of Tohono O'Odham culture and history? I'm leaning towards yes. I'm certainly no expert on the subject, but my limited research after reading this book didn't reveal any obviously glaring errors. But I can't help but feel that sense of unease. J.A. Jance lived on a reservation for years, and she claims to have done a lot of research, but she still is a white woman, making something representative of Native American culture. It's that same level of unease I brought up in my review of The K by Theodore Taylor. There might not be a single thing wrong with it, but you find it hard to trust as an authority on these subjects. All the names in the acknowledgments at the beginning of this book are Anglo-Saxon names. Take that as you will. And if that wasn't enough for people to start commenting, "Wow, Greg, you turned into such a stupid, limp-wristed SJW," then let's talk about how weirdly anti-gay this book is. Andrew Carlyle is a total psychopath, a vicious rapist and killer who disfigures corpses, dissolves bodies, and poisons animals. He's also a transvestite and possibly a deeply closeted homosexual. I say possibly because he rapes a lot of women here, but it seems more like the violence that gives him the erection, not the gender of who he's raping. Early on, he talks about how he basically became a prison prostitute for favors, and later he seduces a man at a gay bar, brings him to a hotel room, and then murders him because Andrew was low on cash. Even if you can argue that he might not be gay, he's still an evil transvestite, in a book written right after Buffalo Bill became a household name. Yes, of course gay characters are allowed to be villains, but the fact that he has sex with men and wears women's clothing is not shown to be anything more than an extension of his evilness. There's otherwise no point of it being there. Also having no point in being there, the very final scene. Alright, so Andrew is defeated, the day is saved, and instead of ending the book with Diana and or Rita, the two main characters, we end with 4 secondary male characters. The detective, the medicine man, the priest, and a 4th guy who was too boring to mention before now. They sit around, talk, and pass tobacco between each other. They eventually bring up the living situation with Diana, Rita, and little boy David, and all come to the conclusion that 2 women can't raise a boy by themselves. David needs a father figure, and Diana needs a husband. Where the fuck did this come from? We seriously end the book on 4 men deciding that our hero's home isn't heteronormative and nuclear enough. Wow. So would I recommend Hour of the Hunter? No, I really can't. I've thrown the word interesting around a lot in this book, and it certainly is, but everything interesting you can find here you could also find in other better books by actual Native American writers. Without that, you're just left with an inflated mess. This book is just over 400 pages, but if you cut out all the Native American legends, the irrelevant flashbacks, and pointless subplot cul-de-sacs, then the book would probably be about 80 pages. It's that overinflated. And for some reason, it's the first book in a series. I have no idea how that happened. Everything's pretty wrapped up by the end. But there's 3 more books of this. Eesh. No thank you. So no, give this one a miss. Well, thank you for watching, and keep on breaking spines.